be shy, don't stall. We got a funky vibe, yeah. Welcome all. It's a safe spot where the truth of mine. Share your thoughts, leave your worries behind. Woo! Defense West, that's where you belong. Click that like and groove along. Hit subscribe, let the love flow free. Join the fam where you're meant to be. Woo! Got mysteries, stories feeling right. We dig deep, ain't no secrets to hide. No judgment here, just an open crew. We're all about justice and the honest view. Yeah, Defense West, that's where you belong. Click that like and groove along. Hit subscribe, let the love flow free. Join the fam where you're meant to be.
Well, howdy doody. How are we? I made it. I have a floppy mic. It's not something that you want to hear. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Turkey Tuesday. Yes, Brian, head on over. Stream is live. Hop off WhatsApp. Good morning, Miss Tricia. I got your message just as I clicked the live button. How are you? Did you have a good weekend? Did you get all your jobs done? Okay, this is going to annoy me. My hat was off kilter. You can't have a hat that's off kilter, I tell you. Lassie, no, you can't. No. So, story time. Let's do story time, shall we? And yes, I have spent the last 10 minutes stuffing with my camera. No one ever gets everything done at all. I agree. Especially when you've got a bee in your bonnet. And you're busy going down rabbit holes. So, so to fill everyone in, last Wednesday, after my stream, I jumped onto Samantha Beninga's live stream. She had a live stream last Wednesday. And Samantha is the I know she's a lot of things. She's a PhD candidate, psychotherapist. She's got a few letters behind her name, basically. And she has been covering the Donna Adelson and the Karen Reid case. And there was a couple of things that I had emailed her about the day before. And so I thought, and she hadn't gotten back to me, so I thought I'll jump into her chat and I'll get her attention there when she's got, a bit of Q&A time. So I've jumped in and I've said, hi from Melbourne, and this woman called Bron pops up in chat and she said, oh, hi, I'm from Melbourne too. Hello there, Mr. Music Man. Ready, please, Mr. Music? You're in time for story time. I was just saying that last Wednesday I jumped into Samantha Beninga's live feed during a live stream in her chat. She has the YouTube channel called I Don't Belong Here. She's a psychoanalyst, psychotherapist, and a whole lot of things. Anyway, I jumped in her chat because I'd emailed her and I wanted to catch up with her in the chat and say, hi, check your emails, pretty much. Anyway, so I jumped in and said, hi, from Melbourne. And this woman called Bron jumped in and said, oh, I'm from Melbourne too. I'm like, sweet, shitty weather, isn't it? And we had a few little chitty chats and what have you. And, about an hour into it, I said, so what part of Melbourne are you from? She said, eastern suburbs. And I went, get out. I said, so am I. I said, this is my postcode. Are you anywhere near there? And she came back and she's like, get the fuck out of here. What? I shit you not. This woman is 4 streets up the road from me. 4. That way. 4. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be fucking with me. Like, this is her Samantha's site. Samantha's from Connecticut. So we're on a site in Connecticut in a chat, random. And she said to me, that was the first time I've been in a chat and actually said something. I said, me too. Anywho, long story short, she came over for coffee on Friday, and it was just because I'd mentioned my my database and stuff, and she is a researcher, true crime researcher. Didn't have anything in common whatsoever, nothing. So I think 5 hours later, she decides that it's time to go, and she left me with this, what she was working on. Basically, she was telling me, and from there on, that's pretty much what I've focused on all weekend. So I know you've probably all heard about the Port Arthur massacre that happened in Tasmania. I think in April '96. I think that was it. Yeah. Where 35 people lost their lives, and I think 22 were injured as well. Never mind all of the other people that suffered, post-traumatic stress, dealing with the site and dealing with the people, and just all the first responders and what have you. So how I got onto Port Arthur was there's a gentleman. His name's Paul. I can't think of his last name, but he's got a YouTube channel now. Hadn't planned to. Hey, Christine, how you going? Has a YouTube channel. And he decided 9 years ago that he was going to do a documentary on Martin Bryant. Martin Bryant is the man who has been charged with the 35 murders and is currently serving 35 life sentences in Risdon Prison in Hobart. And so he began his research 9 years ago, trying to, do a deep dive into Martin Bryant's, youth, life. Spoke to his family, spoke to first responders, spoke to friends, spoke to victims, surviving victims, all sorts. And the more he dug, the more he discovered that there was anomalies with the story, with the public story anyway. So he spent the last 9 years researching Martin Bryant, and it turns out that I basically spent the whole weekend doing my own deep dive. And there are quite a lot of anomalies. Now, Martin Bryant was, I think, 22 at the time. And he grew up in a normal household, no childhood traumas or anything like that. Was a different child, had been labelled pretty much annoying and dim, basically, is what the psychiatrist that evaluated him at the incident calls him. But a good-looking dim. That's okay. Good-looking dim. So he is illiterate. He can't read or write. But at the time, he had a girlfriend, and her interview I watched, and she said that he was trying to impress her at one point during a date, and he picked up the Age newspaper and pretended to read it just to impress her, even though she knew he couldn't read. So there you go. So he actually has an IQ of 66, which is the equivalent of an 11-year-old boy. Now, they when they arrested him, they interviewed him, and I'll show you some of the police interviews. He had no idea what they were talking about, none. And then they asked him specific questions that, you know, they'd had the answers for from witnesses and stuff, and he answered incorrectly. Oh, I know. Absolutely, they did. Yes, 100%. Absolutely. And they basically kept him in custody. I think it went up to about the 5-month mark. And they pretty much worked on him until he changed his plea from not guilty to guilty. Now, in my opinion, they couldn't risk going to trial because he would have been deemed unfit, having an IQ of 66. And so what really, really, really gets me is that his defense attorney, okay, his name's Avery, he was called when they were interviewing, the police were interviewing him, and he pretty much didn't bother coming in, just said, no, you can talk to them, just cooperate. And then proceeded to assist the prosecution in securing a confession. And he admits it. So, I don't even know if he was read his rights. B, ineffective counsel. C, like, did he file any papers for appeal? Anything? This man has now been in prison for 30 years. Nearly one of his 35 life sentences. 30 years. He has never spoken to anyone about it. He has been segregated in Risdon Prison from all of the other inmates. He has never had phone privileges. He has only been allowed one visitor, that's his mother, in all that time, and has had every single media request refused, either by mail or phone. The prison intercept it and deny. Never been seen, never been spoken to since. And just so happens that all of his other records are under seal indefinitely, aren't they? Of course they are. Should have been in Massachusetts. So, I have a couple of little presentations for you, you know, as one likes to do.
Yeah. Massacre. That photo.
One. That's the next one. This one. Okay. Play. Yes. Okay.
When you practiced your shooting, where did you hold the gun?
Okay. Oh, bugger. Press the wrong button. Actually, maybe I should play the other one first. Yeah, I will. Okay.
Still sends a shiver down the spine. Nowadays, we like to think that his eyes are a little crazy, and that expression is ever so... What's his physical... 15...
I hate this. The play button is so tiny, you can never get it. Okay, context. This was recorded last year, 2024. Where is my... There. That better? We'll soon see. Okay. Play.
10 years after the Port Arthur massacre, that photo of Martin Bryant still sends a shiver down the spine. Nowadays, we like to think that his eyes are a little crazy, and that expression is ever so slightly off kilter. But that's all in hindsight. Apart from being a bit troubled as a kid and intellectually limited, really, Martin Bryant could be anyone's son.
Yeah.
But he just happens to be Carleen Bryant's son.
This
And
is
the
his
burden
mother.
of that has been
How about this is
devastating
his
for
choice,
her. Carleen Bryant is tormented by the same questions that trouble us all. What made a seemingly ordinary, if dim-witted young man go out and kill 35 people? And
Or did it?
have we learned anything from that dreadful day? Today, Martin Bryant lives here, inside the walls of Risdon Prison on the outskirts of Hobart. He is serving 35 life sentences, 1,035 years without parole, cast into outer darkness and banished from society forever. His only visitor is his mother, Carleen. Martin is in jail. He will never be free, will he?
No.
Who will visit him when you're no longer around?
Probably nobody. I'm the only person who visits at the moment.
What's his physical condition today?
He's overweight.
He's a man into
Too
his
much
40s.
overweight, mainly from through the medication, which puts weight on, and also lack of exercise.
And his psychological condition, his mental state, what's he like?
That's confidential.
Yeah. How's that? How's that?
Even if I knew.
She is not allowed to say anything. Yes, they're consecutive. Yes. She's not allowed to say what her mental state of her son is. Confidential.
I couldn't talk about it. All I can say is that Martin was diagnosed about 3 years ago
3 years
as
ago.
having Asperger's syndrome.
They waited how long? 27 years before they evaluated him as having Asperger's. Funny that. Hang on. That's better. I was looking for that one. Okay. Now, this bit you're going to watch next. This is the trailer that Paul put together. And I want you to watch it because there is a hidden message in there. He's made this trailer up. This is the trailer he was making to take to the the movie places to show his work off and get contracts, basically. So just have a look and see if you can notice anything. That's his girlfriend. No, 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 no.
With that in mind, in viewing the trailer, one of the
Did you pick it? Anyone pick it? I didn't the first time I watched it. It wasn't until it was pointed out to me. But I will let Paul. This is Paul. This is the producer. I'll let him explain what he's done. It's very clever.
main components that I wanted to introduce was in relation to the identity of the shooter at Port Arthur. The mainstream narrative, of course, accepts that the sole perpetrator was Martin Bryant with his distinctive long blonde hair and surfy look, driving the yellow Volvo with the surfboard on the roof,
Okay.
which was his vehicle.
A. Martin Bryant does not have a driver's license. And I'll show you why.
So one of the notions I wanted to introduce into the trailer was the possibility that there was a person impersonating Martin Bryant, a ring-in, if you like. To that end, I had two different actors portraying Martin Bryant. One of them was obviously wearing a blonde wig. When I first screened the trailer, virtually nobody picked up that this was a different actor. If we consider the notion that the shooter at Port Arthur was a ring-in, a professional who was sent in to, in essence, impersonate Martin Bryant, I wanted to show that that could be done by getting an individual and putting a blonde wig on them and, in essence, portraying themselves as Martin Bryant. There were, of course, scenes that we filmed in the trailer where there was a gunman shooting, and I did shoot scenes where the shooter had fired from the hip, which was generally reported by witnesses on the day. I perhaps should have left at least one of these in, but instead I did have the...
So witness...
What made us...
Chuck, stupid bloody button. So witnesses that were there and survivors have all, well, not all of them, but there's quite a number of them that said that the shooter held the gun, it was an AR-15, at his right hip. And that's how he fired the weapon, basically just by moving his hips. Now, the actual pattern of injury, because obviously it was in the cafe at Port Arthur, most of the injuries were at head height, which would equate to the people sitting down at a chair and that gun being at that level, basically. Just hold on. Just hold on.
seemingly ordinary, if dim-witted young man go out and kill 35 people.
Exactly.
And,
hang on.
And
Martin Bryant, I wanted to show that that could be done.
This man has put
by
9
getting an
years
individual and putting a blonde wig on them.
So just bear with
and
me.
in essence portraying themselves as Martin Bryant. There were, of course, scenes that we filmed in the trailer where there was a gunman shooting, and I did shoot scenes where the shooter had fired from the hip, which was generally reported by witnesses on the day. I perhaps should have left at least one of these in, but instead I did have the second ring-in Martin Bryant firing from the right hand from his shoulder. Generally, reports were that Martin Bryant was a left-handed shooter.
He is a left-hander.
When you practiced your shooting, where did you hold the gun?
On the left.
So you're left-handed.
This is his police interview that day.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Yeah.
This is my...
So if you held a gun, you would pull the trigger with your finger on your left hand.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. And did you ever practice shooting from the hip?
No, never.
Never.
But all the
Like most people, they have
Right.
questions they want
This-
answers to.
Yes.
I don't know whether you'll get the facts.
This is one of the staff members that was there at the time, and she believes that she saw the shooter.
The coffers, because they were some of the one that was really against me. Call me a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not.
Well, look, I don't label people and I certainly don't judge people. And as I said, what I've uncovered has made me ask a lot of questions and go, look, this just doesn't add up. but there's certainly very, very strong anecdotal evidence, factual stuff on public record that seems to suggest there was more going on than met the public eye, put it that way.
Oh, yeah, sure was. People say, why won't you let it go with me?
So
I
this,
just say, I'll never let it go till the day I die.
this woman was persecuted by her community for telling the truth.
The biggest thing there, the door handle, it wouldn't open. The exit door, the fire door, it wouldn't open. It was jammed.
This is in the cafe.
Stacked up there in that corner. And the organ said nobody tried the door. I thought, well, how do you know you weren't in there? But anyway, I tried the door because I wanted to help to get those people one off the other. But I couldn't fix them.
The fire door.
But anyway, I tried the door and I realised the door handle went up and down, but it wouldn't budge. And it turns out that had been nailed up.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. There was some talk about it having a faulty lock, but then I heard that it was nailed.
No,
so who would have nailed it?
That lock was a cover-up. That was a cover-up, the faulty lock business. They went to a lot of trouble with that. That's the whole lever. I made the call to, she called me 1:30.
So she's called 911, oh sorry, 000 here at 1:32 in the afternoon. What time did they respond? To a mass shooting.
In that bus. Came towards the cafe and a couple of bullets come through there, or one come through, just missed me. Well, that's fine. That's not the problem. The problem is I made a phone call there at 1:32 to the police. I was so upset that nobody come to help us. We waited till about 7:20 to 8 for an ambulance or a police car.
Mm-hmm.
We had no tape round time, so there we were, 31 of us. To look after 500 people. On our side, there were 32 dead.
Yeah.
And here we are. There was one man came in at 4:30, and he was only in there to gather witness names, get statements off them. One man with all those people. I can remember him getting on the phone and saying, get some fucking police down here. So that wasn't until after 7:30 that someone came in. They came in and protected the crime scene. Now you see photos of the board there with the blue and white tape around it. That crime scene was not protected. And all those poor people that had dead people in there, they were allowed to go in. We never had the authority to stop them. So she was wide open. All the evidence was getting, bullets were being taken off the floor. But what can we do? That's one thing I wanted answers to.
Yes.
Why?
Mass shooting.
Why do this to us?
Biggest one in Australia.
Because I can tell you it was a very traumatising time.
Yeah, there was a lot of mention of the fact they mobilised everything from the Special Operations Group to the Marine Police, that they were basically held up and they were told just hold off at Tirana.
They were kept at Tirana. They had the barbecue. One of the blokes come down and got his wife, and he just drove through a roadblock. He said, ask the police down there. They said, no, they're having a barbecue. At Tirana, and it was too dangerous for them to come in. And I have in the EMA report, which is a federal government document, where they didn't come in. It's all there, because it was too dangerous. It was about 6:30, 7:15, after dark, straight after dark. We had 3 shots fired. I was in the hotel with about 200 people, and when the word come, and don't let anyone outside, shut those curtains, the gunman's back here. But all their witness statements that 3 shots was fired. Within
Who
about
was shooting
20
them
minutes, in
6 hours later?
Arm to the hill. Arm to the hill. Poor old Martin Bryant before that anniversary. Wasn't it terrible?
He would have gotten off, or at least he would have been found not guilty by reason of insanity.
He did a lot of things without even having a proper person there to defend him. You know, he was left to his own devices, the poor little devil, and he really wouldn't know. I've been out on the ferry, and I was walking in, and I walked past this bloke sitting at the cafe. He was staring at me. But when I got really close to him, his eyes, there was something about his eyes, he wasn't nice looking at all, and I didn't know Martin Bryant either. I went to the cafe and ducked out the side door, and just after that, he must have followed me, and the shooting started. But I know why he was looking at me now, because I had a work uniform on, and he saw me go into the cafe. I hadn't even thought of that for a few days until Martin Bryant's picture came in the newspaper. And he was that much better looking than this fella. This fella had long, straggly hair. He wasn't, nice at all. Martin Bryant was quite a snappy looking boy. Nice dresser and everything, and it wasn't the same one.
Is there any chance at all that it might have been Martin Bryant who had, been so unhinged that he'd lost his kind of look, so to speak?
Dead.
Is
I
it?
don't think so. I don't think so. Now, people that saw him close to what I did, like Graham Collier, he shot in the throat.
Graham
It
Collier.
wasn't Martin Bryant shot
Yep.
him. And he watched him the whole time. He shot him in the throat, he was down on the floor, partly paralysed. And he said, I was sort of making out I was dead because there's that much blood coming out of him. And the bloke stood right around him. He didn't pull the trigger. And Graham watched him. And he said it was not Martin Bryant. Swear to it.
Okay.
He still doesn't communicate a lot, does he? He doesn't talk about the events.
No, he doesn't. He's never talked about them.
Because maybe he doesn't
Would
know.
you like him to?
Yeah, for sure. Martin was different, I'll put it that way. But as far as abusing people and being nasty, no.
No, nothing. No childhood traumas. No. Nothing. He broke a few toys. Now, have a listen to this one.
On the left.
So you're left-handed.
So this is the police interview that morning that his defence attorney refused to go to and said, just cooperate with the police. And the shooter, as I said, was witness to fire from the hip. And this is his interpretation of firing that weapon.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, but this move.
So if you held a gun, you would pull the trigger with your finger on your left hand.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right. And did you ever practice shooting from the hip?
No, never.
Never.
To the Hobart Historic Site. My name is Paul, I'm your guide for the next 40 minutes, and what I'm aiming to do is give you an overview of the history here at Port Arthur.
It's a beautiful place. I went there for my honeymoon.
Martin, do you remember the 28th of April, Sunday the 28th of April this year?
No, I don't. Was that the day I suppose everyone's talking about?
Is that the day everyone's talking about?
That's a shotgun.
That's a shotgun.
Stay inside, I'm pretty sure someone's got a gun. In fact,
I'm pretty sure
positive of it. There's somebody going
He didn't go to trial. No trial. No. No. Ah, shit. Stupid button. No, they couldn't risk going to trial. He's got an IQ of 66. He's the equivalent of an 11-year-old. And they didn't have enough for him, so he would have been he wouldn't have been fit to stand trial. So they had to get a guilty verdict out of him, and they worked on him for 5 months.
So if you held a gun, you would pull the trigger with your finger on your left hand.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right. And did you ever practice shooting from the hip?
The rest of his records are all sealed forever, indefinitely, under seal. Thou shalt not pass.
No, never.
Never.
Ah, fuck, I've done it again.
To the Port Arthur Historic Site.
Stupid button. Just look at his answers. He's got no idea what they're talking about.
That's a shotgun.
That's a shotgun.
Stay inside, I'm pretty sure someone's got a gun. In fact, you're bloody positive of
I'll
it.
get to that.
There's somebody going crazy shooting people here.
I'll get to that. It was his gun.
You know what's happened on that day? On the 28th of April? You don't. I'm sure about that.
There he is, he's over there. I can't believe it.
Any idea who he was?
No idea. Not a local, I don't think.
Any
It's not-
idea why?
No,
It's
no
not
idea.
a documentary.
Ducking for cover around here.
This is real, like this is video footage, but I've put together police interviews, and there was the 60 Minutes thing was just his mother. The rest is all police interviews and stuff that I found. I've made a documentary. That's the only sighting there.
Including people at Sea Street, 35.
And there's people injured too. Many?
Quite a lot.
Approximately 20.
What, seriously or not?
That's the first ambulance in about 35 minutes.
I cannot understand. He did not say one word. He never ran. He walked everywhere, just shooting people.
That's the guy that said it wasn't him that got shot in the neck.
We all know the crime, the staggering scale of it, the awful loss of life. But the person responsible is an enigma, seen but never heard. We're about to change all that.
I thought, Christ, what's this fellow going to be like? Is he
while the police were not
Hannibal Lecter-like? Is he just plain evil?
Representing Martin Bryant, his new lawyer, John Avery, appointed after Bryant had pleaded not guilty 6 weeks ago.
And like the man who got to know him best at the time, you'll be able to form a very clear picture of this infamous individual. With the help of never-before-seen police video, hand drawings of the murder scene by Bryant himself.
Look at that. This man is illiterate. He's illiterate. Can't read or write. But he produces a map, pretty well-scaled map, with all the tables and all 35 individuals, where they fell. Have a look at that again.
Of never-before-seen police video, hand drawings of the murder scene by Bryant himself, and the inside account from his lawyer, we'll seek to discover how and why this horror happened, and who Martin Bryant really is. He is.
In your own words, you went there for that first meeting with a sense of trepidation.
Yeah, I did. It was pretty soon dispelled, I might say, when he was wheeled in a wheelchair with his legs manacled and handcuffed, and with a big grin on his face, like a big schoolboy. I didn't any longer see any connection with Hannibal Lecter.
No, funny that.
Can't explain anything because I don't know anything about keys or.
But it's not funny, is it?
What is?
This what I'm talking about. So why do you laugh?
Because it's good to get out of my cell.
Why are you speaking now?
It's a way of me finally putting the Martin Bryant saga behind me. I don't
know about
It's
that.
been around in some ways for so long that hopefully now I can bury it.
Back in the 80s, a younger Martin Bryant wandered the streets of Hobart selling rabbits to his neighbours. At the time, John Avery was a young lawyer and lived with his wife around the corner from Bryant.
I didn't realise that there was any connection, but he quickly told me, "Oh, do you still live in that big house with an oak tree in the front, and does your wife drive a Holden station wagon, and do you drive a white Mercedes?" Said,
He's got Asperger's.
Yeah.
He's got Asperger's. He can remember shit like that. But he can't recall killing 35 people at a mass shooting. So the defense attorney, no, don't know who did it. Don't know. But I don't believe Martin did it either. Just keep watching.
And we got talking. I went home and I said to my wife, "Do we know this fella?" "Oh, yes," she said. "Don't you remember he used to come around as a little boy selling rabbits around the neighbourhood?" And I'd never let him in the door because he'd peer around like he wanted to see what was inside.
That small connection would help John Avery
He used
years
it against
later
him, basically.
when he was called on to
Used
be
it against
Bryant's lawyer and needed to build trust.
I thought that was the thread I needed, that somewhat personal contact, to hold on to him through this process, and rightly or wrongly I used it.
But didn't it frighten you to think this man has killed more than 30 people, injured more than that?
No, it didn't frighten me once I saw him, because I could see that without the gun, without the weapon, he was nothing. He was a nobody. He was a sad, insipid little boy.
We've got some of your guns.
He was an easy game, easy
Mr. Warren might hold them up, and we'll perhaps talk about each one individually. That might be the best way, but it might be.
It's big. Is it loaded?
No, it's not loaded.
You're not loaded, Martin, I can tell you.
To understand how Bryant had become a cold-blooded killer, Avery needed to get inside his head. He hired forensic psychiatrist Professor Paul Mullen.
All that was required to get him talking and keep him talking was to show an interest.
It was all about him.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
all about him.
He's got Asperger's, and he's
Bryant
11 in his
was
head.
a good-looking young man, blonde, blue-eyed, handsome, childlike. One of the problems, I think, throughout Bryant's life is that he looked an attractive kid, he looked an attractive adolescent, he looked an attractive adult. He also looked an intelligent kid, an intelligent adolescent, and an intelligent adult, but he wasn't.
He wasn't.
So people who met him
So
have
how
expected...
could he be the criminal mastermind that nailed a fire door shut and got away with killing 35 people and drawing maps and shit?
Expectations of what he'd be able to say and do and how he'd react, which he couldn't live up to. This was a dim child who didn't look dim. This was a kiddie who struggled in lots of ways from a very early stage. I mean, I think his parents almost certainly did the best they could. I mean, he has a sister who grew up perfectly normally. I think incompetent or abusive or terrible about his parenting. There was nothing at all deprived or damaging about his family background.
That's what they
It
used
was
against him.
the nature of this
Apparently,
dim,
true.
irritable boy who people really, no one could manage well.
Hey, Martin, how come you never got around to getting a driver's licence?
I didn't think I'd ever pass.
You didn't think he would ever pass.
Because I'm not that bright.
I'm not that
Him
bright.
Odd and difficult. He was never placed in the kind of special schooling that would have been appropriate for someone of his intellectual or lack of intellectual abilities. Partly, I suspect, again, because of his appearance. He looked so good.
Yeah.
Bryant was a loner. He struggled to fit in. He dropped out of school before turning 16.
He told you all I wanted was for people to like me.
And that, in a sense, was where his rage came from. He couldn't understand why people didn't like him. Couldn't understand why people moved away from him. He believed that this was because they were malicious, had it in for him, and it was all terribly, terribly unfair.
Now listen to this.
But Bryant did strike up an unexpected friendship with this woman, Helen Harvey, an heir to the Tattersall's lottery fortune. She died in a mysterious car accident. Bryant was also in the car and suffered a serious neck injury. She left him 2 properties and more than $500,000.
She died and left him rich.
She died, left him very rich indeed.
How did that affect him?
I think it was a disaster. He thought with that would come friends and would come girlfriends and would come a social life and all these things. Well, what came with it, of course, was people willing to exploit him and certainly take him on short term to get what they could out of him.
No.
I said I wasn't interested in the money.
They insinuate that, but no.
I was more interested in what he had to
This is his
offer
girlfriend.
as a person.
In 1995, a year before the Port Arthur massacre, Mary was Bryant's girlfriend. She asked us to hide her identity. They were together for 8 months and took several holidays interstate.
I remember we were in a restaurant in Sydney and he was looking at the age or something and I could tell he wasn't really reading it. I don't think he was that smart. He was only just pretending to try and impress me. And I remember smiling at him and pretending and going along with it to make him feel good about himself. Like he could be smart. He was smart in some ways, but in some ways not very smart.
On another date, Bryant took her for a boat ride. They ran out of petrol and were stranded for hours.
And I started crying.
Did he go off in a fit of rage?
No. He started crying. He thought that was it. He thought we were going to die. I was hanging on to some hope that we might drift somewhere.
So, in this boating mishap, Martin Bryant was crying because he thought he might die.
Yes.
Seems strange against all the evidence of him going in and shooting all these people, where he told some people that he thought he would either die or get captured. But he did it.
Or did he? So that's pretty much what I could come up with in the time frame. But there is so much out there. The producer of the guy that was going to produce the movie, as I said, he's been researching it for 9 years now. I've looked at quite a lot of his videos on it. The last few are starting to get a little bit out there. So I don't know. I think you need to be very selective as to what you believe and what you don't believe, and what you take with a grain of salt. But I do believe that at the time he was an easy pickings, basically. Someone who is only of the mindset of an 11-year-old boy, who had come into all of this money, so had everything to live for. And there's so many things that just don't add up with regards to what happened that day, where he was. Like, they're saying that the shooter came back 6 hours later and was firing shots. Well, he was supposedly arrested at Seascape, at another place where 3 other murders were done that day as well. There's heaps and heaps of witnesses that have said, no, it wasn't him. Lots of things that don't fit, like the left-handed thing with the gun. I even, because that particular gun, the AR-15, it's a semi-automatic. So apparently the point where the shell casings get discarded is at the base of the barrel on the right-hand side. So when you're holding that firearm up on your left-hand side, then that where the casings get flicked out is pretty much right in front of your face. And I spoke to Ian about it, because I thought, well, if that's where the casings and everything's coming out, would there not be some minor gunpowder burns and stuff to his face? And he said, well, there could be a few, but mainly it would just be like gunk and stuff firing out, and getting in his face. Not particularly burnt stuff, but he could have had eye irritations and stuff. But there was none of that visible to him. Had they done a a gunpowder residue on his face that would have cleared it up, but they didn't do any of that. So, yeah, they sat on him. Did you read the note on his disability papers? No? Where was that? Can you drop the link in chat and I'll... Is that the... Was that the confession? Because don't forget, you cannot read and write. But he was able to draw where is it? No. Is it? Keep missing it. No. Listed again. Father protects him on occasion, which might upset him as he's continued to threaten violence. Martin tells me he would like to go around shooting people. That's convenient. It would be unsafe to allow Martin out of his parents' control. And when was that put on his disability papers? Just prior? Yeah. Let me have a look, see if I can find that.
Side. So I wanted to once again...
Let me just find this. There's quite a few on here. There's one I wouldn't mind actually watching. The gunman's missing videotape. Let's have a look at that one. I haven't seen this one.
Did the shooter bring a video camera into the Broad Arrow...
Stop. Let me share it. Sorry, bad pause.
Cafe to record the massacre of the civilians inside that establishment. And if they did, what happened to that tape? The shooter had entered the Broad Arrow Cafe. He was carrying the Prince sports bag, which contained the firearms. And also there were reports that he was carrying a video camera. You would imagine that if somebody recorded the shooting that took place in there, it would comprehensively 100% determine the identity of the gunman. And yet that tape has never seen the light of day or a court of law. Welcome to the WASP files. Some of this material may be distressing and viewer discretion is advised. During the many years that I've investigated the Port Arthur massacre, there are more questions than there are answers, particularly in relation to missing pieces of crucial evidence. One of these that really stands out, and in many ways has been sort of glossed over or brushed under the carpet, is the reports that the shooter had entered the Broad Arrow Cafe. He was carrying the Prince sports bag, which contained the firearms, and also there were reports that he was carrying a video camera. The shooter had entered the Broad Arrow Cafe, ordered a meal from the servery, and then struggled to get out through the door onto the balcony. One of the patrons actually held the door for him. He ate his meal on the balcony, came back into the cafe, where he withdrew the rifle and opened fire on the patrons. However, there is also reports that the shooter had set up a video camera on the same table where that gun bag was later abandoned. The police themselves confirmed this when Martin Bryant was interviewed by Inspectors Warren and Payne. They stated that they believed that he had entered the cafe with the gun bag that was over there, meaning the Prince sports gun bag, and also his video camera. Many, many months later, a police training video that was put together by the Tasmanian police was inadvertently leaked to the public. It was meant to be police eyes only. It was a training video which basically looked at the overall investigation into the Port Arthur massacre, the crime, the response by the police. There were interviews with some of the witnesses. But then later on in the video, there was some very distressing footage that was taken by the police where they videoed the interior of the Broad Arrow Cafe. This included some very upsetting images of the deceased victims still in the positions in which they'd been killed.
Oh.
As the video pans across the interior of the Broad Arrow Cafe, we can see on the table where the abandoned Prince sports bag is left, the gun bag. Very clearly next to it is a black video camera. Now, Nitram, the film that was made, in essence, portraying Martin Bryant as the sole perpetrator of the killer. And the final scenes of that movie, even they portrayed a scene where Martin Bryant goes into the cafe, places the gun bag on the table, takes out a video camera, sets it up, hits record, and then picks up the gun and walks out of frame. And that was the end of the film. So the crucial question that needs to be asked is, did the shooter bring a video camera into the Broad Arrow Cafe to record the massacre of the civilians inside that establishment? And if they did, what happened to that tape? You would imagine that if somebody recorded the shooting that took place in there, it would comprehensively 100% determine the identity of the gunman. There's only one problem with all this evidence. The tape has never seen the light of day, nor has any evidence about the ownership of that video camera, whether Martin owned a video camera, though the police confirmed that he did, and whether that was the video camera that was seen in the footage that was leaked, the police training footage. Now, that tape, amongst everything else, including the DNA and the fingerprints and the ballistics, which should have been taken from the Broad Arrow Cafe, would once again comprehensively determine the guilt of the shooter. And yet that tape has never seen the light of day or a court of law. So the question has to be asked, where is the tape? Where is the camera? There were reports that the camera case itself was located in the abandoned Volvo when it was left at the toll booth after the shooting that took place there. But the camera is clearly visible on the police training video when they pan across the interior of the Broad Arrow Cafe. That is evidence that the authorities could comprehensively end any controversy or debate with by simply saying, we have video footage of Martin Bryant in the cafe because he filmed himself. And yet that hasn't been discussed. There has been no determinations on that. And there certainly hasn't been any release of the video that would show that Martin Bryant was there. We know that the abandoned gun bag that was in the Broad Arrow Cafe was a Prince sports bag, a tennis bag, if you like. There was also verified reports that Martin Bryant had attended a shopping centre with his girlfriend Petra Wilmot and purchased the Prince sports bag and was apparently seen measuring its length. Ostensibly, this bag was used to transport the rifle inside the Broad Arrow Cafe. This bag was left abandoned on the table, and within that bag was a combat knife that was wrapped in a bloody towel. Damien Bugg, who was the chief prosecutor, said that the DNA on the blood on the knife was consistent with that of David Martin. Now, that in itself is an inconclusive statement because DNA is not something that's inconsistent or consistent. It either is or it isn't. It's, of course, convenient that the shooter had left evidence that he had killed David Martin by leaving behind in the gun bag a bloody knife wrapped in a towel, which was later recovered. The other unusual aspect is that witnesses stated that when the gunman had exited the Broad Arrow Cafe, he was carrying another large bag. Now, there were reports that a shotgun was fired inside the Broad Arrow Cafe, though Gerard Dutton did not include this in his ballistics report, and that later the Daewoo semi-automatic shotgun was found in the boot of the Volvo when it was abandoned at the toll booth. That ostensibly means that perhaps there was another gun bag that was containing potentially the Daewoo 12-gauge shotgun. But this is, of course, once again, yet to be determined. So the question is, how many bags were there, and why would the shooter exit the cafe with the one bag and just leave the other behind? These are all unanswered questions that point the finger to the fact that we do not have the answers to some very crucial questions. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the WASP Files.
So there's a story behind the gun as well. And I've only just scratched the surface here. So the gun in Victoria, before this, we had a gun amnesty where semi-automatics and that had to be handed in to be destroyed. And that gun was owned by a farmer in Yea, which is just out the country, probably an hour from here. And it was handed in, and one of the special ops police officers decided he took a liking to it and kept it for himself as his personal weapon. Okay? And then he had that for a few years, and then he sold that gun to a collector at the Seascape in Hobart. And then Martin bought it off him. So it actually came from a Victorian special ops guy who owned it prior, and it was supposed to have been destroyed, the AR-15. And the lady, the witness that you heard on the tape before, that was saying that it wasn't him. And same with the guy that got shot in the neck. He said it wasn't him either. And there is others. I just haven't put them in. She said that there were multiple victims with gunshot wounds. With there was heaps of them. She said there was definitely 2 guns. But the problem is, anything, if you go to look any of that up, you go and find it, you go and try and see if that's true, everything's under seal. Everything. Why? It never went to court. It never had they never had a coronial inquest. Nothing. It's the biggest shooting. It's the biggest. Hello, Texas Granny. How you going, sweetheart? It was the biggest, or it is still the biggest mass shooting in Australia. And I think the pressure of having to have a conviction to find someone quickly may have played a part in it. Who knows? What happened to all that money that he got? He had everything to live for. He had a girlfriend. He had 2 properties, $650,000 in the bank. Now, that was a lot of money back in 96. Oh, it still is now, but so this guy here that decided, so 9 years ago, he started out to try and make this movie about him, and basically has never gotten there because he's been digging into this story. And the thing is, Bri, what you're hearing is what they want you to hear. So they've basically put out into the media what they want you to hear and what they want you to think and what they want you to know, and hidden the rest of it. That's where he's coming from. And he's slowly been uncovering bits and pieces of it. Like, why wait 27 years before you actually diagnose him with Asperger's? Why? It was thrown around early on that he was schizophrenic. Never diagnosed with it. Never. And to have a defense attorney work against you, that's not fair. Even if he did do it, he's still entitled to a fair trial. He didn't get one. He didn't get the chance to, because they basically coerced a guilty plea. And he had no idea the consequences of doing that. No idea. Surely in 30 years, he would have said something to his mother. He's got Asperger's. He could remember everything. Yeah. It just does not sit with me. It doesn't make sense. And he's never gotten around to making that movie because he hasn't... he wants to get answers before he does, basically. So you can go and have a look at his site. As I said, the last few, I think he's getting a bit out there. But initially, it gets you thinking anyway. Gets you thinking. So I will continue to keep an eye on that. Because it got my brain going, and I like that. Absolutely. Well, I mean, you are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. I don't even think he had his rights read to him. Actually, I'll tell you what, I actually went through all of the transcripts that I could find, the public documents of transcripts from the police interviews and stuff and hearings, and I put them into my little database. And I got it to do an overall just summary, basically, and then I walked away and never looked at it. Let's see what it came up with. I've got to log back in. Biographical analysis of Martin Bryant. Okay. How many pages have we got? Okay, he was born in May. Oh, let me see if I'll share this. Don't know how I can make that bigger. Ouch. That's better. Okay. Now we can see a little bit better. Oops. May 7th, 1967, at Queen Alexandra Hospital in Hobart, £6 after 2-hour labour. Sister Lindy described as a happy baby, rejected cuddles and any sign of physical affection, rejected breastfeeding. For 16 months, he was hyperactive. He probably had ADHD as well. He swallowed a nail at school. Slow speech development, impaired fine motor skills. did not seem to be maturing. By age 3, it was clear something was seriously amiss. Primary school highlighted Bryant's impaired development, sparking a cycle of rejection, isolation, and solitude. Became a high school recluse. Approximately, 66 was his IQ, functioning in lowest 1 to 2% of the population, markedly retarded intellectual functioning. Could not read or write, but he was able to produce a map and a confession. Handwritten. 84 assessment by, now this Dr. Eric Cunningham Dax. If you look him up, apparently he's a fairly controversial doctor who did work for the Tavistock industry or something like that. He was associated apparently with hypnosis, deep hypnosis, and implanting, like, the sleeper snipers and stuff. That he was involved in that type of stuff, and that's where Paul is headed at the moment. And I think that's a bit far. But yeah, this Cunningham Dax apparently was associated with all those. They were in there. It was what they were working with the CIA apparently, and doing test stuff. And that's a bit far for me. Young man born with a personality disorder, intellectually impaired and struggling with autistic traits. Helen Harvey, that was the woman that left him all that money. All right. After losing both Helen and his father, Bryant began to regress, desperately seeking new relationships. Had been planning a massacre for several months, even circling April the 28th on his calendar. That's not hard to fix. The massacre was triggered by a long grudge against David and Sally Martin over a property dispute, allegedly. John Avery. He had previous encounters with Bryant in his neighbourhood when he was a kid. His wife noted peculiar behaviour. Recognised Bryant's extremely low IQ, described him as a borderline to subnormal. Like he's qualified for that. He used Bryant's sensitivity about his low IQ. That's right, he did. So the reason that he admits this in the police interview, I need to play that, is he says one of the things that Martin, one of his biggest concerns was people calling him dumb and stupid, basically, as you could imagine. All right, he was heavily bullied as a child as well. And so his lawyer said to him, paraphrasing, but in the interview he said, this is from the lawyer's mouth, that he told him that there was no point going to trial because it was inevitable what the result was going to be, plus it would put him up on the stand where people could call him stupid. And that's when he said, okay, I'll sign it. So he used that against him. Used Bryant's sensitivity about his own IQ as his Achilles heel to persuade him to plead guilty. Advised Bryant to plead guilty to all charges rather than pursue a mental impairment defense. He did no defense, nothing. Argued that Bryant's guilty plea demonstrated remorse and acceptance of responsibility. Believe Bryant didn't understand the concept. No, he doesn't. He couldn't even understand the concept of the consequence of signing that. He had no idea. Didn't understand the concept of remorse. When prompted to apologise, he said, oh, well, I'm sorry then, aren't I? He was just saying what you wanted him to say. Yeah, this is that funny psychiatrist. Conducted initial consultation plus several follow-ups. Case notes. Cannot read or write. Does a bit of gardening and watches TV. Assessed Bryant as unemployable as he would upset and annoy people to the extent he'd always be in trouble. Yeah, no, you're too annoying. You can't get a job. Here's a disability pension for you. For fuck's sake. Brian could not concentrate during sessions and interrupted to talk about irrelevant matters. How could he focus on planning something like that? Like, fuck. He doesn't have the capacity to do it. So, his rights that should have been met: a right to a fair trial, right to adequate legal representation, protection of vulnerable persons with intellectual disabilities, right to informed consent for pleas, right to silence and protection against self-incrimination, right to understand charges and proceedings, and procedural fairness and due process. Just a couple of rights there. Just a couple. And Sam Bryant's IQ of 66 severely compromised his ability to understand the nature and consequences of pleading guilty to 72 complex charges. Evidence. His response to judicial questions were simply yes, sir answers, which may indicate compliance rather than true comprehension. Legal standard for intellectually disabled persons, the threshold for truly informed consent is significantly higher. Adequacy of legal representation. John Avery's advice against pursuing a mental impairment defence despite clear psychiatric evidence. Multiple psychiatric reports documented intellectual disability, psychopathic disorder, and schizophrenia spectrum features. That was never diagnosed, though, schizophrenia. Yet this viable defence was dismissed. Professional duty breach. Failure to adequately explore all defence avenues for a vulnerable client. Lack of proper procedural safeguards. No evidence of an independent third person during police interviews. True. Insufficient capacity assessment before plea acceptance. No accommodation for communication difficulties. Rushed plea process without adequate time for comprehension. Psychiatric assessment standards. Contradictory conclusions about his capacity to understand proceedings. Assessments found him functioning at concrete level of understanding, yet concluded he could comprehend complex legal concepts. Fitness to plead assessments may not have adequately addressed his capacity for informed consent to a guilty plea. Missing accommodations, plain language explanations, visual aids, and simplified court procedures, extended time for legal advice and comprehension, support person in court, multiple sessions to ensure understanding. Police interviews without a third person may have compromised volunteerness of statements. Bryant's suggestibility and compliance could have led to unreliable admissions. His documented inability to understand consequences make any self-incriminating statements highly suspect. Under the Crimes Act 1914, Commonwealth and common law principles governing fair trial rights, Bryant's treatment raises concerns about Section 23F, special provisions for vulnerable persons. Though enacted post-1996, reflects established principles. Common law fair trial protections requiring special consideration for intellectually disabled accused. Australia's obligations under international human rights instruments as well. Conclusion. The evidence strongly suggests that Martin Bryant's fundamental rights as a person with severe intellectual disability were not adequately protected during the criminal justice process. The combination of an IQ of 66, pre-existing psychiatric warnings about his dangerousness, rapid guilty plea to 72 complex charges, dismissal of viable mental impairment defence, and a lack of robust procedural safeguards creates a compelling case that his right to a fair trial, adequate legal representation, and protection as a vulnerable person under Australia's federal law and human rights principles were compromised. The extraordinary public pressure surrounding the Port Arthur massacre may have created an environment where the nuanced needs of an intellectually disabled accused were inadequately addressed in favour of achieving a swift resolution. And that's my point. My point is that he may well have done it. He may not have done it. But he didn't have a fair trial and he didn't have fair representation. And his rights were violated, basically. That's the point I'm coming with. There's no justice in that. Nothing. And that shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't. He should have the right to all of that. So, there you go. Legal rights analysis. What's that? Oh, it's the same thing, just in a different format. All right. Cool. Well, that's has that got your brains ticking? Cool. All right. Well, yeah, it's definitely given me something to think about, and it's good because it lit a fire under my true crime ass, so my justice ass, which is good. I couldn't find any updates on Mickey Steins or anything. There's no real change there. There's no documents come through. There is that new trial that came out yesterday. I can't remember the name of it. Have you seen any of it? The one that started yesterday? I think it was the I can't remember. I can't remember now. As I can perhaps do recaps on that if you're interested. Otherwise, something else that I was following. Oh, the Alexei Trevigo. That's supposed to be coming up very soon too. The baby in the hospital bathroom. And apparently he was alive, and he actually has a name. They had to name him, obviously. So that might be coming up shortly. There was something else that I was looking at too. I've got my fingers in a few pies, so to speak. So now, tomorrow I have my case conference with the tribunal and the NDIS. So I'll see how I feel tomorrow night when which is your Wednesday morning. I may or may not do a stream tomorrow night. I'll see how I feel. It's going to be a big day, massive. And I spent half the night last night rewriting and going through all this stuff, and then reverted it all back to the original anyway, because I'm an idiot. I'm too OCD for my own good. So I crashed out at about 3 a.m. and then woke up at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Problem with that is I had a really good sleep, but the longer I sleep, the stiffer I am when I wake up. That's what he said. All right, I'm going to leave you with that. So don't be good, be good at it, and hasta la vista, bitches. Bye-bye.
Hey there, thanks for stopping in. We hope you will join us again. We all look forward to next time. We get to talk about true crime. Clues. Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule and the defense rests. Our true crime family is great. All types of topics we debate. Smash that like and ring that bell. Hit subscribe, you might as well.